Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, and in this video I'm going to explain why no third runway should be built at Heathrow Airport. This third runway idea has been around for over 20 years. The British government have spent these 2 decades dithering and still managed to arrive at the wrong decision. Both Labour and the Conservative Party have been against it, then for it, and here we are. Remember, the Conservatives swept to office in 2010 on a pledge to never construct a third runway at Heathrow. Now Cameron's no longer Prime Minister. Boris Johnson has said that he would get down in a ditch to stop the bulldozers moving in. Now, it's part of his typical colourful rhetoric. But he's a man who's only interested in his own advancement, and he's broken many pledges before, such as not to stand for Parliament whilst he was editor of The Spectator and so forth. So we'll see what happens. He may yet renege on his promise. Notably, he has not resigned from the cabinet, and if there really were an issue of principle, he would have done that. A local MP, Zach Goldsmith, he resigned his seat in Richmond over this issue, lost it to the Conservative Sarah Olney, but then regained it. Anyway, we shall see. So why am I so against a third runway at Heathrow? Well, this area is already too crowded. It's the main corridor to the west of London. It doesn't have much road and rail capacity as it is. It's a very densely populated area. So the planes take off there 18 hours a day. They're not allowed between midnight and 6 a.m. So people hear them. Obviously, it's a bit of a disturbance. You might point out there was an RAF base in the Second World War. So hearing planes is nothing new. For 80 years, people have been hearing planes, but far fewer and lighter ones. Admittedly, planes have got quieter in recent years, but some airlines at El Al are still very noisy. Anyway, this third runway involves demolishing a village and building over a protected environmental zone. So if there needs to be a third runway, there are things that can be done. I would put it at Luton, because it's close enough to central London, not too close. It's not very populated around there. More road and rail capacity could be put in. There's room for that. 24-hour flights. There are not so many residents to be disturbed by that. It's that bit closer. The rest of the United Kingdom. This is an airport for the whole of the UK, not just for London. It's close. Most of the country is to the north and west of London, and Luton is to the northwest of London. Anyway, even Gatwick, well, it's the wrong side of London, but it's not as overcrowded as Heathrow. Even Stansted, again, it's too far east and a bit too far north, but there's a very low population density around there. There's plenty of room to increase road and rail capacity. There was a Boris Island idea of a man-made island in the Thames estuary, but that was by far the costliest option, so it's not going to happen. This third runway at Heathrow won't be operational until at least 2025. It may yet never happen. This is the problem with the British government. They just don't grasp the nettle and do it. And there are legal challenges, and there are protesters who are chaining themselves to diggers and things like that. And it hugely drives up the cost and slows down the project. Like, where was it? A certain down back in the 90s, near Bracknell, a bypass. So this would have been built years ago if they had actually just been determined and railroaded it through. And in other countries, that would happen. A lot could be done to make Heathrow more efficient as it is. Some planes are taking off with only 100 seats and then mostly empty. And one could have the same number of movements of aircraft and have a hugely increased number of passengers if we had a law saying all planes taking off must have at least 300 seats, or huge fines for empty seats. So we could still have any operational 18 hours a day and do that. We could have stricter laws about quiet engines so as not to disturb the residents. Anything else are round runways, which can handle 4 times more planes than straight runways. They're slightly banked, they reduce noise, they're more environmentally friendly. There are loads that can be done. Other things we could do to improve the situation. Well, if they do have to build a third runway, I would say build it on Staines Reservoir. There's several large man-made lakes around Staines. These reservoirs could have the airport terminal, have them on very high stilts, the buildings and indeed the runways, and then linked by very fast train to the rest of Heathrow. Other problems about Heathrow, lots of domestic flights. Now, flying to the Outer Hebrides, well, that's different. But a lot of flights within the UK could be done by rail, a lot of these journeys. And the government talks about joined up government. It's so expensive to take the train. It's often cheaper to fly, which is far worse for the environment. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, the government has got to make it financially viable for people to travel by plane, by higher taxes on flights, which are degrading the environment, and low taxes, no taxes on rail journeys. Make them cheaper. Bring them back into public ownership if necessary, if you're serious about it. This is another issue, but rail fares in real terms have tripled since privatisation. And I know the railway is a bit more efficient and all the rest of it and cleaner, but that's still poor value for money. Could have gone up a bit, not this huge amount. So there's so much which could be done to make Heathrow better and more efficient, and make it a global airport, make it a 24-hour airport indeed. Don't need a third runway, but as I say, if one has to be built, it could be on Staines Reservoir, which is 5 miles from the main Heathrow terminals, could be linked by a very fast train. We could have also purpose-built super-fast train on a viaduct or on stilts, linking Heathrow to Gatwick and the other airports for transfer, linking to central London, things like maglev trains, magnetic levitation, where they hover 5 millimeters off the track and they're extremely fast, as they have in China, up to 300 miles an hour, and that's coming close to rivaling a plane. That's it. No third runway at Heathrow. I'm quite consistent about that, for all sorts of reasons. I'm not sure it's worse for the environment than putting it anywhere else. The moment that, because Heathrow is about 98% capacity, the stacking and planes are circling Heathrow waiting for a landing slot, which wastes fuel. So that wasn't the case. That would save fuel as well.